last week. Um, Welcome everyone, and glad you could join us for the week 3 live session. Just off the top, are there any concerns from you guys that I can answer or that other members present can answer for you about the assignments, anything else, or how the class is going, burning issues, learning team issues?
So last week, after we did the live session, I noticed that you had said to one of the other students, you posted the YouTube and the question, but I wasn't able to find them.
And that's a mystery to me. As I said last week,
So I kind of just took what you posted from him.
And that's good. I did post it, I think it was about 10 a.m., the time tag, 10:06, something like that, Friday after our session. But a number of students did not see it. So this week, I'm going to change up. And I'm going to post it as a class announcement rather than just in our regular conversation feed, which I did last week. You know, so for instance, after I finish grading, I'll put a note in the announcements that says week whatever grades are posted. That's where I'll post the link to the YouTube recording, and that way you'll see it. It's just that you can't respond to it there. So when the questions are there, when you see them, you'll have to cut and paste them, or copy and paste rather, into something that I can find and grade for you.
Okay. Thanks. That'll be great.
Yeah, I know, Will. You had trouble finding the darn thing, and you were not the only one. But there's just so much that's going on in our main posting feeds.
Is it? If I may interrupt, is there anybody else that is hearing Professor Baker sound like he's in some sort of a time warp or something, or some weird sounds?
Yeah.
Is that just okay?
The video freezes once in a while too.
Okay.
Well, I can't explain that. I actually bought a new camera for this class. So if the darn thing doesn't work good, I'll throw it out and get another one. But I did notice that the YouTube feed does seem to be free. It is recording like without any hesitations or hiccups. If you need to review a particular topic, I guess you could go to it. It's not time tagged or anything. You just have to kind of find your way. Any other concerns or questions? Great. Well, I want to get started with the week 3 topics. As you know, our week 3 focus is on the management function of planning, and each of the weeks subsequent to week 3 are going to focus on a management function. Week 4 will be organizing, week 5 leading, and week 6 will close up with controlling. Leading is my favorite, I'll just tell you that right now. So that's in a couple of weeks. But as it comes to planning as a function of management, you've seen in the readings and videos that they talk about planning horizons, like operational, tactical, strategic. So, you know, near-term stuff is going to be different than mid-term and farther-term stuff. And we also talked about planning levels, you know, the planning that takes place at the operational level, at the middle management level, and then at the top management level. And all these have kind of different focal points that the managers pay attention to. And I think that pretty much makes sense. And then there was a lot, and not just this version of the class, but previous versions of Management 521 have a lot of information on the SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And that's because the expectation is that you, as MBAs, are going to be expected to know what a SWOT is and to be able to do one as it happens in your job. I mean, not everyone will need to do one. But it is a very valuable tool And those who have prior military service, it probably sounds somewhat familiar, um, which is fine. Um, but the one thing that I probably will change in my follow-on classes is that the SWOT analysis seems like it's a standalone thing. Well, here's this topic of planning, and then here's the SWOT analysis, and it's like its own subject. It's not. It's a tool to do strategic planning, and it makes not a lot of sense or applicability outside of its role as a tool for strategic planning. There's a question, I think, that talks or that tries to get to what are the steps in strategic planning, and this external and internal analysis, which make up a SWOT analysis, is part of that. It's not a big thing, but it's not going to affect how you do in the class or the assignments or anything like that. It's just something that I think should be emphasized, that the SWOT is a tool and planning is the function. Questions, comments?
I read something several days ago about on the levels of planning, and that what do most public companies use as their strategic 3 to 5 years?
Yes, I think 3 to 5 years.
Well, the reason I said, because I remember reading that, and Jeff Bezos from Amazon, he clearly went after a 7 to 10 year, which put him radically different position from a strategic planning standpoint. Clearly, it seems to be working because they're very disruptive. That's for sure. But I was trying to figure out if that is that really a rule of thumb, or is that in public companies that's just the way it kind of really worked out?
I know the VA used 2014 to 2020, so a 6-year strategic plan.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, a one-size-fits-all planning horizon for strategic planning might be, cumbersome. I understand that Toyota goes out about 50 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, and nobody knows what the world's going to be like, but they have people that are engaged in that long of a planning horizon. Wouldn't that be a great job?
Yeah, maybe that's why Camrys got so expensive.
I'm not sure, but anyway, if it works for who's that guy? Bezos? I'm not sure I ever heard of him. Bezos?
Jeff Bezos, Amazon, yeah. But I don't know if anybody else read that, but as I get older, I forget things. But I remember seeing it last week, and they specifically mentioned one of the advantages that Amazon had is that they had a longer view, and that allowed them to, I don't know, they essentially differentiated themselves from that. And I was just kind of curious because I didn't know if there was like a standard there or not. So,
well, I think much of it depends on the subsequent effort that goes into modifying plans. If you're out 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, the states, the assumptions that you use to build the plan won't be assumptions anymore. They will be a reality, and they will likely be different from some of the assumptions, and they'll have to be modified. Well, I think the best organizations are back into their strategic plan every year or so, and the states of reality lead to adjustments in assumptions and sometimes in objectives. So as long as they are putting the necessary effort into modifying the strategic plan, I can see how a longer time horizon would work well. But in doing them myself, and this is in local government, in doing them myself, I stuck with 3 to 5 years because there's a lot of busy work that goes on in a government, and there are no staff that are dedicated to just planning. I mean, everybody has other responsibilities, and they do planning as they can when they can.
Thank you.
Well, good question. Good point. I didn't really have a lot of other things to say about planning. Um, were there other concerns? Have you all participated in planning in your organizations? Can you tell me about those experiences? Anybody do a SWOT analysis or participate in a SWOT analysis? Good. Well, what was that like?
I worked for a publicly traded Canadian company, which successfully just this year completed their strategy to get bought out, and now they're owned by a Chinese company. But yay, we had so much stock out there; it was crazy. But anyway, yeah, my CEO was, genius. Yeah, she was, satellite engineer or whatnot. And she said, "Oh, Will, you're a military guy and you're our director. Why don't you lead our strategy group?" So I had to kind of facilitate for the group, so I kind of had to bone up on that. But I mean, I wasn't the guy coming up with the strategy; just facilitated it, and I think it was useful. I really do, and I think the key for us was every quarter we would take the leadership team. Every quarter would go off for like an afternoon, and I think every 6 months we would go out for an entire day and just do strategy stuff.
Wow.
And it wasn't like let's do new stuff. It was like, okay, where are we at? Are we, or where we want to be? Do we need to adjust? Things like that. So, you had mentioned that earlier, and I think that was the thing that helped us the most, is that, okay, we've got to link everything we're doing back to what we said our plan was, and even down to daily activities had to be nested in some way, shape, or form. But there were a couple of quarters that, we got busy. It's like everybody does, got busy. We didn't do it, and all of a sudden, it just started to break down.
Yeah.
So there had to be a little discipline there, and when we were doing it, I thought it was useful. So
I think that's a very valuable process that you went through, and my role was similar to yours in local government strategic planning. I facilitated the police department in doing their strategic plan, but I was no cop, and I didn't come up with their objectives. I just showed them, the process and what they needed to go through to come up with reasonable performance objectives and measures, the control part. Anyone else? Welcome, Mel. How you doing?
So
I'm fine, thank you.
Good to have you with us.
Hi, everybody.
hey, Mel.
hi.
Francine, were you going to talk about your experience in strategic planning or SWOT analysis?
So, well, I've done several SWOT analysis through the program. Like I said, this is my last class, so I've been doing this throughout the class. But so I had to help develop a business plan last week because the nurses for my program don't have the resources they need to be able to complete their job. And we've been having a lot of nurses work overtime because we're behind in our visits. So leadership wanted us to come up with a plan on how we're going to get rid of the overtime. So it was funny because when I sat down with the lead nurse, because, I have a lot of the information, and I started talking about the SWOT analysis and everything, she's like, we don't do any of that stuff.
Huh. Oh.
So it was a totally different experience than Will. I was a little disappointed because a lot of the stuff that I've learned, I've learned that, you have to back up with whatever you say. Like if you say, the nurses need computers to be able to document their visits. You need to be able to provide resources and show why that's valuable and how that's cost effective. But they didn't want any of that. So I was a little disappointed.
At the risk of being a spring butt, hey, Francine, it's not uncommon, I don't think, for people to run into organizations, they say, we don't do that. But that's a perfect opportunity to wow them. in many cases, especially when you deal with small and medium-sized companies. I'm dealing with one right now with the president, and he's like, "Oh, we never did that. We've never done that." And so,
I tried, Will, but they were not very receptive to it at all.
I think in a hospital setting, they just not.
Oh.
see, I don't know that, so I was just saying. But I wouldn't let it discourage you because, like I said, it's the procedures aren't that complicated. If you can pull it off, it's a nice wow factor. Francine, do you work for the VA?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm still waiting.
I think in a hospital setting, they just don't do the SWOT analysis because even in my setting, even working from the food versus side of it, where she's working on the nurse's side and the doctor's side, they don't want to do a SWOT analysis. They just want you to come out with a plan, tell them how you're going to get there, show them how they're going to get there and be done with it. They don't want you to sit down and strategically plan it out. It's just something I think in that hospital setting, they just don't want that. I don't know. Even though I'm like Francine, I was like learning this way. How about we sit down and brainstorm it like this and see what is strong points, weak points. I don't know, just tell us what you're going to do. Give us the action plan and let's work that action plan out. That's exactly how they told me too.
Oh, wow.
Well, and I think it's a disadvantage too, right? Because if they don't know what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are, they don't really know what we need to work on.
Right. I think it's a disadvantage also. And even like last week when we talked about me going into this new location, I looked at it in that perception and I had to kind of keep that to myself, even though I knew I had colonized what I was going to do. Like I had already mapped out how I was going to go and what could be strengths, what could be my weaknesses in doing it. They didn't want to know. They just wanted me to turn the numbers, just show them. As long as I got the job done, they were happy with it.
I just a thought, and I'm not trying to be difficult, but I was thinking for situations like that, Mel, where somebody just says, "Just give me the plan, just give me the plan," and then the SWOT analysis then seems to be just a tool to get you to that plan. Kind of like free writing, your boss doesn't want to see your first drafts; he wants to see the final draft. And and some guys then will look at your draft and say, how did you come up with that? And then you've got the SWOT analysis you can dig into. I don't know. Am I all wet on that, Professor Baker?
No, I think that depending on the organization, there may be a willingness to review how the sausage is made, if you like that metaphor. And sometimes that's kind of gritty and kind of ugly, versus wanting to see that nice polished presentation, with all the animation at the end and the back padding stuff. But, a good SWOT analysis cannot be that. And it may lead to a good plan at the end. But one of the critical factors in a SWOT analysis is that weakness part. And I think I did a posting or a couple of postings about this. If an organization is not willing to take an honest look at themselves, and that means sometimes things that may rankle the top folks or other management folks, the weaknesses that are identified, if they're not willing to do that and face up to them, or worse, if they have in mind to punish somebody who vocalizes weaknesses or identifies them, kind of sanction them somehow, anyway, that would be a bad thing, and it's not going to be a productive process. So there has to be kind of a culture, not just of tolerance, and I don't mean diversity tolerance. I mean tolerance for hearing bad news from those who are going through the planning process. If there's no tolerance for that, then I think you're really up against a difficult barrier. It can be overcome, but typically to do a good job of a SWOT analysis, you've got to have somebody at a pretty high level that wants it done and wants it done right.
Maybe that's something I can, when I get up there, that's something that I can say, this is what we're going to implement.
Well, good for you. Good for you. And I think that will help your organization when you do get there, and do emphasize that.
Well, I do hear they're firing a lot of people at the VA, so you should be able to move up quickly.
Well, I know, but hopefully those are folks that deserve to go, and that they're bringing in a cadre of great folks. I've had other students who work for the VA, and they discuss a culture change that is really great, really encouraging. And it's not just since Trump's been president. It was under Obama too, that the tolerance for poor.
It's been slow, but it's been going, and hopefully it's been getting better. But we still have a lot of improvement to go.
Well, Francine, that's great news for me.
Yeah, and I think for all veterans that depend on the VA, and they're just millions. My son is one, my brother another.
My husband is one.
Yeah,
Mine too.
Well,
my father served for 30 years, so.
That's great.
We are making changes. The leadership is changing, and I believe it needed to change. I've been there 13 years. I was on a collaboration on access. We improved our access to our clinic by over 25%. We presented it, and when we got it to the quad, the 4 top people, we're just a little place up here, they basically said, yeah. And one of the keys was trying to maintain an MSA permanently in our clinic. Yes, she needs vacations. We need coverage.
What's an MSA? I'm sorry. What's an MSA?
Medical support assistant, like a secretary.
Like the clerk.
Yeah, the clerk. They sit there and they take your appointments and stuff. And when they know their clinic, they can be beneficial. They can know certain stuff without being medical. They can be a specialty.
They're the informal leader. They actually run the whole clinic.
Well, they do. They can shift the appointments. They know what priority is versus what the business line was doing was rotating them through, saying they should know every clinic. And we presented that was wrong. Got it up through the quad. We did get recognized under Vision 1, but because we were missing that link at our own facility, we couldn't hold the business side to the clinical side, and we lost it. And they're doing what they want to do. I hope.
Tammy.
Well, I was upset because I didn't believe it in the first place when I got put on the team, but I went through it and we proved it. But the quad shot us down. Now I'm like, I'm not going to do that again, but I probably will.
That's one of the great things. Like, even though they shoot you down on stuff, like, never stop trying. I'm very tenacious when it comes to that stuff.
Okay, so if I can just I'm sorry, Professor Baker, I just want to just kind of stress something about this planning thing, because Tammy, you got kind of hosed and you wanted something and it didn't happen. And if you can master this sort of planning stuff, then sometimes you just got to give the bosses the crap that they need to hear, so they'll say, yeah, that's good, yeah, let's do that. So just knowing this strategic planning process, because we all think, our bosses are so smart. They're really not. They're just there. And so, but if it,
Tammy, make it seem like it's their idea.
Oh, yes. That is a graduate class by itself. That's government stuff. So anyway.
Well, it might be government stuff, but it also applies to industries. It's like the bosses not being smarter. I mean, even outside of government, some of the same dynamics and many of the same dynamics are also operating, as I'm sure, Cindy, you know about. There are folks who are going to be at a high level, who are going to be champions of doing a great job of strategic planning. Some of them are more lukewarm, it's kind of imposed on them from above, and others who, might want to get it done like by using a consultant or something, and that's really a poor way to do strategic planning. You've got to have the folks who know the company. It's okay to have a consultant, I think, to kind of guide the process, to bring in some resources or whatnot, but the analysis and the identification of objectives and measures and so forth, that's really got to come from company organizational staff, or it's not going to be very useful.
Professor Baker, you said earlier that you thought it was critical that the culture of the company be open to looking at weaknesses and things like that. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And I hadn't really thought of that, but I do remember we had a business unit manager, and she had a business unit that had their margins, the profits, everything had gone down year after year. And I remember when the boss, said, okay, well, let's look at this and see what it was. That business unit manager got very defensive, and it really wasn't about, okay, you're a dirtbag, we're going to get you. No, it was like, let's figure out what's going on here. But it's just kind of old habits. She just couldn't do that. So that was a good point. I never really thought about that. Yeah, because we assume everybody's going to do that, but no, a lot of people don't. They're like, I don't want to air my dirty laundry.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of contrary.
It's so funny that you said that. Well, that's exactly what my lead nurse said. We don't want to let the leadership know that we have dirty laundry, that we're like 96 visits behind. And I'm like, but that's exactly why they should know.
I think that's what I was about to say when you said that also, but because today I had the last meeting with the lady, because today was my last day at that location. I'm like, the reason why you're failing is because you have one supervisor. I see it in her face as I was talking to her. She knew it, but like if she just wouldn't accept it, because in her brain she's already short-staffed and she just lose another person. And I was like, but if you don't lose this person or you don't shake this person up, you're going to lose your whole operation. So which one is at a bigger risk? And I think sometimes, like you said, Rio, that they don't want to accept their weaknesses because they're afraid of what's going to come if they realize what they're really up against.
Yeah.
I think it's more that they don't want to look bad, right?
No.
I think that's why the lead nurse who I helped with the business plan, she doesn't want the leadership to know like we're struggling to get the visits done. Even though, I pointed out like the veterans that we take care of are high risk of suicide. So that's even more of a reason for us to make sure that let them know like we need help, right? But they don't want people to know that they're failing. Yeah, Tammy.
You may want to go above her head. That is now the new culture of the VA. That's what Shulkin is trying to put out there, is that there are people who have become obstacles in our leadership that have either been there a while or whatever. That's how Phoenix got in trouble. That's how
Thinking about
New Hampshire
Phoenix,
got in trouble. And don't be afraid to step out there and say, this is wrong, because you have people at risk. And as soon as somebody puts themselves on your watch, it's not your leader that's going down.
I have no idea what that means.
It sounds like Darth Vader.
Mel, is that you? I think it was Mel.
Well, now I can't. Mel, you got to unmute.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Can you hear now?
Yes.
That's my husband asleep in the background. Sorry.
Kidding.
Might need to mute again.
That's
why I keep muting it as y'all talking, so when I'm not talking, y'all can't hear it.
Well, thank you for muting when necessary. And Martha, welcome, Martha. Glad to have you join us. And Chris, I hope when you can, you'll try to join the conversation. That'd be great. Martha, you there? Can you?
Yes.
Yeah. Great to have you with us.
Good to be in.
Okay. Yeah, that culture in strategic planning is not always present at the level that will allow you to do a first-class job of each of those elements of strengths. Well, typically, strengths is easy to do. Weaknesses is the tough one. Opportunities, that's usually something that's fun for people. And then threats, it can also be difficult, but it's that weaknesses that's especially vexing to a lot of organizations. It's natural that they don't want to air their dirty laundry, but if they're going to improve, it's necessary. One of the things that I saw that was helpful is if a SWOT analysis or a strategic plan is done right when a new director comes into the organization, then there's not that dirty laundry. Typically she or he is anxious to find out what is not functional and to take steps to fix whatever is not functional. And so they're anxious to find out what the weaknesses are in their new organization. But it doesn't mean that you can't start with existing staff. They just have to be open to it. Any other comments about planning, SWOT, other aspects of time horizons, levels of planning? Anybody been at the top level of planning, the executive level?
What's the top? Like working for the commander in chief? No.
Well, yeah, I would say at a unit level.
Oh yeah, I have. But it's a pretty small company. It was about a $80 million company. So
that just doesn't seem.
I look at what Cindy. Well, Cindy, you sent out something with Grainger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Grainger's like what 10 billion revenue or something like that. I mean, this company was a company,
Right.
but penny stock actually. But anyway, I did have a question. Something that came up, and I really didn't know where to fit it in. Yesterday I had my meeting with the guy, and he's trying to hire me. But anyway, I was doing the SWOT piece,
Right.
and he started talking about opportunities. And like you said, his eyes got big. When I asked him about weaknesses, he was like, "Well, I never really thought about that." But but when we got to opportunities, he actually differentiated. These are opportunities, and then he also listed opportunities that he is absolutely forbidden his people to pursue. It was like for example, he said government stuff. The lead time is too long. My accounts receivable, I can't, do big major government contracts, things like that. But he has several categories of opportunities, recognizing that they were opportunities, but he had made a conscious decision to forbid any of his sales guys or his business development folks to go after those. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know is there a separate box for that, or I was just writing notes, but
Well,
I don't know.
I think that good companies, good organizations know what is their forte, and they want to be even better at doing what they do very well. And yeah, they might want to branch out into some things, but there's danger in that. Some companies just keep a solid focus on what they do well. One of my favorite examples is In-N-Out Burger, which is a California chain that's expanded into Texas, Arizona, and Nevada. They have a very simple menu. It's burgers, fries, shakes, and drinks. They fix them in funny ways, but that's it. They've been around 60 years, something like that, and they started with burgers, fries, shakes, and drinks, and are still there. They know what they do well. They're fabulously successful. Then you've got Burger King, and they've really gone through some permutations in their menu. They even had table service at one time. And good for them. I mean, they try to be inventive, and they want to have some advantages over what amounts to many competitors out there in fast food. But if the table service thing flopped, who knows what part of a strategic plan that took. But I don't blame any company for knowing what they want to do and knowing what they don't want to do. I think that's cool.
So if it's a legitimate opportunity, but he says, I know it's an opportunity, but I don't want to pursue it, then I just keep it off the list.
No, and I can tell you that some of it might be limitations of the company. So you might have an opportunity that you know is your opportunity, but you don't have the bandwidth, it would cost you more money than at your current state that you can afford to pursue that opportunity, right? So let's use Granger, for instance. Okay, there's plenty of opportunity out there for us to go after different markets, but it would cost the company a substantial amount of money, and we don't have the bandwidth to support going after.
So you just get picking your targets really very carefully.
Exactly. So even though it's an opportunity, we can't afford as a company, even that large, to go after something. So we would have to reinvest more than we could probably sustain.
Yeah, I noticed Armenia and Georgia weren't really high on Granger's target list.
No.
Well, look at Apple. They're a good example too. And Jobs was famous for this. Ex-CEO Jobs, late CEO Steve Jobs, who passed away in 2011. He kept his company focused on a very few products. There are some now on the market from Apple that Tim Cook, current CEO, has brought out that Jobs did not want to do, much like your friend will. He just wanted to keep the focus on a few things. Look at Amazon and the recent purchase of Whole Foods. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Whole Foods.
I was shopping in the grocery store today.
Yeah,
online. It's not a good deal. Kroger's cheaper.
Well, yeah, just about everybody's cheaper, but the locations that I've frequented in Austin, which was where they began, and in Dallas, were really fabulous marketplaces, just not cheap and all. But I'm not sure it's a good fit for Amazon, whose strength is, shipping stuff quick and selling it cheap. We'll see. But I thought the character of Whole Foods is going to change entirely. They had taste tests down all their aisles, and they had very well-trained employees who knew their products well and could recommend stuff. I think that's all going by the wayside.
$7 gallon ice cream. Who buys that? Yeah, gallon ice cream. It was crazy. So I don't know. My girlfriend, maybe ex-girlfriend, she works for Amazon, so I'm just curious to watch this, and I just can't wait for headquarters 2 to get. They finally announced it. It's going to be in Atlanta, so that my property of my house will increase. So, I think the Amazon grocery thing is really strange, but the all the fees and stuff were pretty significant. And I just looked at it. Has anybody done any of that stuff? Anybody shopped I don't know. If I need Cheerios, I can go to the store. I don't need to have them show up in the mail.
Food store.
Actually, a lot of my vets do, because I work for the caregiver support program. So the caregivers can't leave the vets at home alone. So a lot of them said they order everything through Amazon. They love it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'm working with my 87-year-old mom, saying, "Mom, you really don't need a license anymore. Just look at Uber." I'm trying to protect the people in her little town. So.
Well, even a lot of local grocery chains. We've got a local one here. Well, actually, it's not local. I guess it's out of Omaha, Nebraska, but they branched out this way. It's called Hy-Vee. They do where you can shop online and they deliver it to your home. So, Whole Foods isn't the only one that's cornered. Amazon hasn't cornered the market on that exactly, but.
Okay.
But yeah,
it's just so big. I mean, they could just do so many things. Okay. So, that's fine.
Hello?
Yes, Martha.
Well, Food Line 2 has online services.
Who did? I'm sorry.
Order your groceries. Food Line can order the groceries online.
Oh, yeah, Food Line. That's great. That's an interesting market. I wonder how much of this was put in place due to strategic planning years ago versus a quick opportunity that they saw to keep up with Walmart, who's doing the same thing, or Amazon.
I would bet it's the latter.
I know Food Line just renovated a lot of their stores. So they probably got the idea for someone else. The face of their stores are changing so they can order more things.
Good for them. No, they're a pretty good company. I used to shop at Food Lion when I lived in Virginia, and we liked them. We liked them, even after the 60 Minutes slam. If you're familiar with that, 60 Minutes did a story on Food Lion that cut their sales to the bone, unfortunately.
How long ago was that?
Oh, it was in the mid 80s, I think.
Several years ago.
Okay. Well, talking about this just giving me an idea for a entrepreneurial company.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm looking at combining delivering of groceries, streaming Netflix, and all I really need is the technology to like rotate the body so people don't get bed sores. And then the rest, and most Americans, we can just sit there and watch Netflix as people drop food in our mouth.
I hope it doesn't come to that.
We're about there. All right, I'll stop.
Well,
it's not that hard to go to the grocery store. I'm sorry. It's just not that hard.
You know,
Oh, but like when you're really busy, like for instance, you know, I work in LA, I live in Oxnard. It takes me 2 hours of a commute one way, right? So it's 4 hours of driving, 8 hours of work. There's 12 hours. Then I come home, I go to school. You can hear my granddaughters in the background. And, you know, my husband's deployed right now. So ordering from the grocery store right now, maybe it may seem lazy to some, but when you have a crazy schedule like that, it could be very useful.
Fair enough. I'm justly rebuked. I'm a man with no job, so.
It is very helpful because I use the Kroger app where, you know, you pull in and you pick up your groceries. I do that because even though we both work, it's separate shifts, and by the time I get from work at 5, 6 in the evening, get the kids from school, one got football practice to 8. Now by the time we make it home, I gotta figure out how to do homework, grocery shop, cook. It is a lot, so it helps a lot. And Amazon, to tell y'all this since y'all were talking about it, Amazon is going up on their prices this month because I'm an Amazon Prime member. So it went up an extra $1 because he's trying to compensate for what he's doing. Because like you said, in the next 2 years, he's planning on bringing Whole Foods as an internet where you can shop from his Amazon Prime membership.
yeah.
So, yeah, they taking over.
Say we were all worried about big government and Big Brother. We should have been worried about big corporations. So, yeah.
Oh, editorializing again.
Sorry.
That's allowed. Well, any other questions or points about planning? If not, I'd like to talk about week 3 assignments. Somebody else joined us. No one else joined us. Sorry. I wanted to talk about week 3 assignments. So there is, for the individual assignment, a paper, a summary that is maximum 525 words. That's the body of the paper, just for clarification. The titling, the references don't count for that 525. So if you're over by 20 words and you've got 30 words in your reference, you know, you're good to go. I also wanted to let you know that beginning this week, I'm going to be putting all papers through the plagiarism checker. Can you hear me? Am I breaking up?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Did you hear me say the plagiarism checker?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you might want to do that for your own papers in advance. But yeah, I think through the remainder of the course, I'll be using the plagiarism checker on all your work. Just to let you know. Somebody is in pain.
Hey,
So she's not in pain.
Well, You haven't seen my grandson who lives with me, come in and disrupt yet, but you may get your chance. No worries. Anyway, that's all I had this evening. If there were other topics you'd like to talk about, I'm at your disposal. And if not, it hasn't been an hour, but I'm good with ending if you'd like. That's fine.
One more question. So for the individual assignment, we're going to submit the SWOT analysis plus the 525 summary, correct?
Yes, you can put the SWOT analysis at the end of your summary. Yeah, it's
Okay.
one thing.
Okay, one paper, but just include it in there.
Yes, and that does not count for the 525 words.
And I guess my question is for our team project then, essentially what the celebrities did, we just kind of looked at what everybody had, and Cindy had Granger, and we kind of said, Granger seems a lot better positioned to do it. Cindy, you're going to have to do the major thing. So everybody's doing a SWOT stuff, but we've already decided in advance what our team was going to be. And is that the way you intended us to do that, or?
Yes, I just want to caution you a little bit that you're not helping each other in any way on your individual.
Okay, so we were supposed to pick one of our teammates' companies that they're doing and decide this is the company we want to focus on this week for our team assignment and go from there.
That's right, now.
So, Will just made me think of something else. So, are we building a strategic plan to better this company for that globalization, or are we just going over their old strategic plan and trying to make it better?
You're improving it. You're improving it for the global market that you want to enter. Okay, does that make sense? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. In my head, I was thinking because some of the things my team was talking about in our forum, I was just trying to make sure we were going in the right direction. So we shouldn't be talking about where they already a global aid. We should be trying to enter a new market, correct?
Correct, a new market, new global market.
Okay.
Wow.
That is not my house. I don't know if you also, but that's not mine.
Bill, that's yours, isn't it? I knew it.
Well, Mel, you get the prize.
I have an 11 and a 5-year-old. I'm so sorry. They're in the background.
Don't worry about it. I think we're pretty much all here for our families in one way or another. Don't worry about it. Okay, well, if any other questions, I don't want to close. I don't want to close on you if you've got something you need to address. Okay.
Cindy, you're good, right? You're comfortable, right?
Who's that?
You.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good.
No celebrities question. Sorry.
If my team needs anything, just let me know. If you need more information than what I sent, just reach out. I can get you whatever you need.
Okay, great. All right, you guys. Well, I'm going to wrap it up, and thank you for attending. You'll see the link tomorrow in announcements along with questions. So, thanks again. I bid you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.